Good evening. Welcome to the Sunday evening update on the tropics here. As always, these thoughts are mine alone, and I'm making decisions regarding each of our systems here. Please refer to the National Hurricane Center, your local weather office, and your local officials for all the latest information regarding each of our systems here. We're going to talk about Sally here in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico, but first we're going to talk about Paulette, and then lastly we're going to talk about Tropical Depression 20. Renee is not really something that we need to watch for right now, and it's likely to dissipate over the next couple of days. But first, let's get into Paulette here. Paulette, you can see as the sun has set, has become a lot more symmetrical, and you can see that the storm has begun to gradually intensify. It is currently assessed at 85 miles per hour per the National Hurricane Center, or 80 miles per hour per the National Hurricane Center, and this is continuing to try to strengthen upon approach to Bermuda. This is likely to intensify into a Category 2 hurricane as it gradually approaches Bermuda over the next 12 to 24 hours, and it will be impacting Bermuda very heavily, as this will likely be able to intensify into a Category 2, as I previously said. If you look at infrared imagery, you can see very similar evolution here. You can see continued convective bursts firing around an eye, and this is trying to tighten this eye and perhaps quicken the strengthening that is expected here, and maybe the storm will be able to intensify a little further than what the National Hurricane Center currently forecasts. But regardless, hurricane conditions will be affecting the entire island of Bermuda here, as this is a very small island, and conditions really do not vary depending on where you are in this island. So if you're in Bermuda, you need to be rushing those preparations to completion, as this will likely be affecting you very soon. You can see the outer rain bands beginning to encroach upon the island, and this will likely begin late tonight and into tomorrow morning as the storm draws closer. Official National Hurricane Center forecast has this approaching Bermuda and exiting the area by 2 p.m. tomorrow, and beginning that turn to the northeast that was mentioned. And it will likely intensify into a major hurricane and be tracking over the Atlantic for the next couple of days as a powerful hurricane before undergoing extratropical transition and kind of getting out of our hair here. This is likely the last time I'll be talking about this system, but this is, regardless, a dangerous situation for Bermuda, and storm surge and high winds will be impacting the island very shortly. Now on to Sally here. We have a very confusing situation with Sally. This is pretty complex and very sensitive, and so forecasting this system has been pretty rough, and you can see why here as the system remains sort of disorganized here. We have a lower level circulation here that is, actually let me redraw that, somewhere within this region, and you can see that that vigorous lower level circulation is trying to stack with a mid-level circulation that is trying to form here just off to the east of the system. And this has been a process that has been ongoing, and for almost the entire day we've been trying to get the system to stack and begin to really strengthen, but this has currently just been gradually strengthening into a mid-grade tropical storm with 60 mile per hour winds as it continues to approach the northern Gulf Coast here. And if you look at water vapor imagery, you can see why this is happening, as this weak upper level low here is now exiting, and this northwesterly shear that has been impinging upon the system is beginning to decrease, and that will allow for the system to develop outflow to the northwest, which you are seeing on this with this region of cirrus clouds here off to the northwest of the system. And this is allowing the storm to ventilate that convection that is trying to develop over the lower level circulation. And so perhaps we could see this storm stack a little sooner than expected, but currently it's going to continue to repeat this process of attempted stacking as it approaches the northern Gulf Coast. And exactly when that stacks is very sensitive and will likely determine how strong this is able to get. Currently, the National Hurricane Center wants this to get to a 90 mile per hour hurricane, or Category 1 hurricane, but this could be able to strengthen a little more depending on what exactly it does. So here on the GFS model, you can see that surface low is a little decoupled from the mid-level low here, and so that surface circulation will continue to try to stack over the next 24 hours and will likely not, according to the GFS, will likely not be able to stack until it's practically onshore here. And due to the weaker storm being more prominent for a larger portion of the track, the GFS takes it further west here. However, some of the intensity models have strengthened this a lot faster and have stacked it a lot faster and have taken it further to the east and turned it to the north sooner, because it will begin to feel that upper level steering that is generally trying to push it more to the northeast and turn it. And so it would turn faster if it was stronger sooner. But as you can see, the GFS doesn't really stack it until it's practically on top of the Louisiana, Mississippi Gulf Coast here. And as a result, the hurricane it becomes a hurricane and strengthens rather rapidly before making landfall upon Gulfport, Mississippi in this particular run. And if you look at the past run, you can see that it's much weaker, and now it is much stronger. And this is a very sensitive situation. You can see how much of a difference we have in intensity here, as it is not very strong in this particular run, and it's a little further west as a result. But if it becomes stronger sooner, then it will be more to the east. And so if you are in the area that is not currently hurricane warned, if you look at the 3-day cone here, this is not an area that is currently hurricane warned. There is a hurricane watch for the Alabama Gulf Coast, extending from the eastern Mississippi Gulf Coast all the way into the entire Alabama Gulf Coast. And this may become a hurricane warning. It depends on when this actually stacks. And if it does trend sooner, then it will likely come ashore closer to the Alabama coastline. So if you're in Mobile, you do need to be watching this, as this may impact your area, and some of these surge values may shift eastward, and a stronger storm would be likely if it were to stack sooner, and it would have a little bit more time and less land interaction as it goes into this part of the region. But if it stays weaker, then it would obviously not be as strong and would turn later to the north, as it would strengthen later in its life and would not be as strong. And so that's why there's significant differences in the intensity forecast here. There's a big split between potentially a major hurricane versus a weaker tropical storm here. And so that's why the National Hurricane Center is kind of an average between those two solutions and has just a strong Category 1 hurricane here. But this is still very dangerous and would likely bring life-threatening conditions to this stretch of coast, and there are several reasons for that. First, if we look at the peak surge graphic, you can see that these values have actually increased since yesterday, anywhere from 0.4 chon to the Mississippi-Alabama border. You will likely be dealing with 4 to 7 feet or more of storm surge here, and obviously, if this moves a little further to the east and comes closer to the Mobile, Alabama area and the Mobile Bay area, all of these values that you see, 7 to 11 feet here, would shift to the east. And you do need to be watching this if you are in these areas. Just because you're not under a hurricane warning right now does not mean that you need to be preparing for something. And be preparing for something that may be very strong here. This is not something that you need to be taking lightly here. And you can see this part of the coast is very surge prone, stretching all the way into Louisiana here. This whole area is very prone to dangerous storm surge, and it doesn't take a whole lot to do a lot of damage here, especially on the Mississippi and Alabama Gulf Coast here. So you need to be watching this and preparing for this seriously. If you have a mandatory evacuation order, please do heed it and get out as soon as you are ordered to do so, because this could be a very dangerous system, especially if it does go east. If it goes west, it still presents a lot of danger, and in another form too. If it goes west, you can see the peak rainfall graphic here. You have in this dark purple 20 inches of rain or more in this region. Obviously, if it goes to the east of the track, all of this rain gets shifted to the east. And if you are in these regions, please do prepare and understand that you are in a very dangerous risk for flash flooding, as this will be slowing down. If you look back at the 3-day track, this is 1 p.m. Monday here, and this is 1 p.m. Wednesday. This is sitting over this region for 2 whole days and is bringing a ton of rain. And these will, as this dissipates over land, this will likely be coming in the form of bands that are trying to go into the system here. very similar to how Harvey did most of its rain damage or rainfall flooding in the form of what were prolonged bands that trained over the area of Houston. This will likely be something similar to that in this part of the coast. And, again, if it's further to the west, it will likely bring this rain closer to New Orleans. So this entire stretch of coast needs to be preparing for something that may be very serious here and will likely do a lot of damage. You need to be preparing for the worst here and understand that no amount of levying can protect you from what is possible here. And now on to Tropical Depression 20 here. This is again, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits here. This is a true color shot of the system, and you can kind of see here today that the system remains disorganized and is not very strong, and as a result has not strengthened into what would be Tropical Storm Teddy. And currently the system is not really dealing with any unfavorable conditions. It is just taking a while to organize, and this is largely due to it being part of this massive kind of gyre of sorts that it is a part of still, and this has stretched out the circulation throughout the day, and the longer that this does take to organize, the further west this may be able to approach. But for now, we're kind of just looking at a system that will likely go out to sea and maybe become a powerful hurricane here. But again, some features to watch here with the system is the southwestward propagation of most of the convection that would likely pull the circulation a little further to the west for a little longer and may, bring this a little closer to the islands. Right now, the westward trend generally does not affect the islands. You can see this is the GFS analysis showing this still very large gyre of sorts here of vorticity, and that is beginning to kind of split off into two systems here. And as we go forward with the GFS, you can see that it does intensify into a strong tropical storm here due to a very favorable environment and begins to advance off to the west. But again, it would feel this lower level steering longer if it were to not strengthen as much in the short term, and due to it strengthening quicker and the mid-level ridging here to the north decaying, this likely experiences beta drift and drifts off to the northwest here for the next several days and likely becomes a powerful hurricane as it moves generally out to sea. That is the current forecast for this. If it does trend a little bit west, we can expect maybe a more significant threat to the islands, but right now this is looking like it will likely just go out to sea and be of no harm, thankfully, for the islands and everyone, really. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.